What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Outcast Podcast. For this episode today, we are going to take a slightly different approach than our previous episodes. So we've been recording for over a year now, and despite that fact, we haven't really had an episode where we just, talked. Essentially, we want to try and have our listeners know a little bit more about us as people. So we decided to do a conversational episode today, and we're going to be focusing on our individual experiences, our passions, how we were introduced to Outreach, the organization that helped us to get this podcast started, and just general hopes for the future. So starting off, my name is Rose, and I use she, her pronouns.
My name is Jordan. I use they, them.
My name is River. I use he, him pronouns.
My name's Hunter. I also use she, her pronouns.
All right, so getting into the first question. For many of us in the LGBTQ plus community, we become aware of our identity at different points in our lives. Some of us, like me, become aware of what we are when we're younger, whereas other people figure out their identity when they're older. So then all of us here, when did you become aware of your identity? I already sort of started going on with my stuff. So I figured out I was into girls in middle school in like 7th or 8th grade because I fell really, really hard for my best friend. And it was just like, holy shit, this is like the biggest crush I've ever had. What the fuck? But like, because of like compulsory heterosexuality and all that shit, I wasn't even like, I knew that lesbians existed, but I wasn't aware, or like I never really considered that I might not be interested in men. But then, I start to figure out that that's a possibility for me in high school. And I'm like, do I like men? I probably do. But do I? I do. I don't. Do I? What? And I waffled on it for a long time. And then I went to a gay prom and I was done. I'm lesbian. That was me. I figured that out as a sophomore in high school. So that was fun.
I also figured, so like being trans and bi, like it's kind of, you realize the two things kind of separately sometimes. I was definitely one of those kids. Like I came out as bi when I was 10. I had a friend of mine who is actually also trans now, who we were like hanging out in the girls' bathroom in like elementary school. And he turns to me and he goes, River, I think I might like girls. And I was like, that's allowed? You could do that? I'm allowed. That's a thing that I can do. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, and then it occurred to me almost a week later that I had been in love with him for about 3 years.
That's insane.
And like, we're still friends now. And we've talked about this. I was like, I don't know if you know this, but you're the first person who made me realize I was queer. And now we're both like trans gay men, which is really funny.
You guys.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
On the trans front, I figured out that I wasn't cis in like 8th grade, so probably 13. And then I pretended that I hadn't figured it out for like 3 years after that. Because I was like, so I came out to a couple of my friends as gender fluid. And I talked to my mom about it. And she's gotten a lot better since then. But for sure, she was like, I'm not going to ask you what your pronouns are every day. That's asking too much of a person. And I was like, okay, never mind. I was just kidding. And then I didn't talk about it for 3 years.
This is interesting to hear because I have a cousin who had a very similar experience. I'm pretty sure that he figured out that he was trans before he figured out that he was bi. But he also figured out very, like, relatively young.
Yeah. And I think the interesting thing is I've talked to Hunter about this before. Like once I started on T, very suddenly I had little to no attraction to women. Like before I started on testosterone, I thought I might be like a non-binary lesbian. And then I started on T and I was like, women, what are those? I have no interest in dating those. It's all men all the time. And like since then that's kind of mellowed out a little bit. Like it's less like, oh, women, yuck, and more like my label changed probably 10 times. Has changed 10 times since I came out when I was like 10. But it's always been like, I think I like everybody, until for a brief moment it was like, I don't think I like men, and then for another brief moment it was, I don't think I like women, and I'm identifying as I think right now I'm just kind of identifying as a trans man who is also queer because I don't know. And it's weird because I don't know. I know that like a lot of trans men when they start on T have that, like their attraction to women dwindles significantly. Like that's a regular, like it's a common thing when you start on T. And so I'm like, is this the T or am I just gay? So it's a very weird thing that I have not figured out yet.
No, yeah, figuring the things out. You talking about like feeling that you're attracted to just everyone and then realizing, wait, I might not be. That was also my experience. Like when I figured out I liked woman, it was just like, okay, well, if I like woman and I guess I like men, I guess I just like everybody. Yeah. It's like it's figuring it out is so weird and it's all over the place, but like you do it.
Compet is crazy. Like
fuck Compet. Compet
oh
can
my
eat
God.
shit, but it's everywhere and it sucks.
I identified as bisexual and pansexual, kind of both at the same time for a very long time, and pretty much the whole time I was like, I think I like dudes, but I'm not sure. I like, are they gross? Yeah. And do I want to like hang out and like date them? Probably. I'm supposed to.
Yeah. Mine actually went like back and forth because when I was younger, when I first thought I was different in air quotes was when I was a little kid and I stole a pair of my mom's heel boots. Oh, they fit like a glove and I loved how I felt in them. But when I first realized I was attracted to more masculine people, and I can't believe I'm saying this, I had a crush on all 4 of the members of Big Time Rush.
But who didn't?
I didn't.
Yeah.
But okay.
But I had like a One Direction phase, air quotes, because my friend convinced me that I must like Zayn Malik. Because how could you not like at least one of them?
One Direction phase. A lot of lesbians have had a One Direction phase.
Which is crazy because I thought I was a lesbian and I never did.
The only reason I had one was because my friend convinced me to have one. Literally.
Oh yeah.
Compet, man. It always comes back. No matter what. It's fucked up.
Yeah, I think the boy band phase was like an AFAB staple that I never kind of caught onto. It was never really my thing. Like I remember, oh my God, I like the original Justin Bieber craze, like the
but like
the baby era. Oh my God, I hated him for no reason.
Too.
I hated him when I figured out that Baby was sung by a guy and not a girl. For some reason, I felt betrayed. Like
it was never really. Oh yeah.
It was crazy.
For sure.
But actually, as I gotten older, I reflect on. I don't suppose any of y'all heard the or seen the Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost movie.
Oh my God!
I fell in love with the Hex Girls. Like I don't know if I wanted to be her or if I just wanted to date her, but either way, I'm fine with it.
I didn't have.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Thanks. I didn't have that experience. Like I watched the video occasionally, but I didn't watch that movie. But I saw like a clip of that when I got a little bit older, and I was like, yeah, the main one. That
yes.
Yeah, that's like another weird thing about being like identifying as like a man who loves men but being trans is like I have such a hard time distinguishing between like attraction and gender envy. Like it's very weird. Like I look at a pretty man and I'll be like, this is gonna be a little bit vulgar, but I think it's funny, so I'm gonna say it anyway. The thing that I always say is like I can never tell if I want to fucking be him or be fucking him, and that's like
yes.
Like that's my I'm like it's really hard because I like for instance the Peacemaker show just came out. Vigilante is like peak gender envy, and also I do want to have sex with him a little bit. Like, I don't, and I can't tell if it's the same or different. It's very weird to like look at someone and be like, I do want to look exactly like you. But also, maybe I'm attracted to you. I can't, it's a similar feeling of like being attracted to someone aesthetically and wanting to look the way that they do. Like, I am someone who never really just has figured out how to distinguish between romantic and platonic affection. And so like, it's that thing of, I don't know if I'm actually attracted to you or if I just want to look the way that you look, which is uncomfortable and weird. Cause I'm never like, it feels so weird to like have those people that you look at and you're like, I just don't know which it is. It's a confusing thing.
I feel like as I come more to my identity, I feel less queer, which feels lame to say.
Understandable.
But like, well, because it's like I feel like I was always a trans woman. I just was like an undiagnosed one because like my mother said before, like when I was like 3 years old, that I used to put towels on my head and pretend it was hair. And I feel like I always wanted to be a girl, but like I didn't know that at the time. And so like I had masculinity like pushed on me, and I just kind of thought that like, people had to, that your gender was your gender and you had to live as that, and you were just kind of like, that's kind of what you had to, you had to be happy with that. So like being gay was like my way of, I guess, coping with being male. And then honestly, I suddenly realized when I was 20 that I could just be a woman instead of wishing to be one. So like through different coming out like processes, honestly. It's like bisexual, well, no, at 4, because bisexual at 12, gay at 13, non-binary again at 20 also.
Yeah, I think like it is way easier, I think, for trans men to start presenting the way that they want to present than it is for trans women. Because like, and obviously that has been the case for, I guess, a short time. Yeah, because like I was never like wear dresses and skirts kind of girl. Like I was always jeans and hoodies and sneakers. And then once I started like socially transitioning, it was perfectly comfortable to like continue wearing those clothes. But it is harder, I think, to get people to identify you differently when you're dressing the same. Does that make sense? Because for a lot of people, that distinction comes in the way that you present yourself through fashion. And the fact that there are some clothes that are inherently feminine and like way fewer clothes that are like, I guess inherently is the wrong word, but like socially feminine. There are way fewer clothes that are socially masculine because like it's become acceptable for women to wear pants and to show off their ankles and to like wear suits. And so like I showed up to prom in a tux and people were like, oh, you're just like a weird lesbian. I'm like, no, man, no. I'm a trans guy. It's different. And that's a thing that is like weird and uncomfortable to have to explain to people that, yeah, I look the same, but it's because I've been more comfortable in these clothes because my egg hadn't cracked yet. Like I figured it out.
It's also just, as a lesbian myself, just because someone dresses masculine, like I guess assigned female at birth people, like dressing masculine, there are some lesbians who do that, but that's not like a marker of lesbianism necessarily. Sometimes it is. But just the assumption that you couldn't be anything else but a lesbian just because you wore a different kind of top, like that's fucking stupid. Like, I don't understand that. Okay, well, I do. It's people being stupid. But
well, yeah, it's clothes being assigned gender by, and I mean, like, that's a thing that I'm one of those people who will probably never be able to go stealth just because like I'm 5'3" and I look the way I look, and I dress the way that I dress because it makes me comfortable, but that's considered like more feminine I'm more of a jeans guy than a sweatpants guy. And like, I guess that's like a feminine thing. Anyway, but I'm somewhat like, I've always been really comfortable expressing that, maybe a little too comfortable expressing like my sexuality and gender stuff. Like I remember coming out at Muncie Civic when I was like 10 or 11, and that went over poorly. Like there were girls in the dressing rooms who didn't want to get dressed in front of me anymore. And I was a 10-year-old. Like,
that's so fucking stupid.
That's a 10-year-old. Like,
but it's also
man.
Like, I don't think there's the way you phrase that. It's like you should be however comfortable you want to be expressing yourself. Like, I don't think you were the problem. Just the fact that the people around you weren't comfortable. That was the problem there.
Right. I think when you come out really young and people treat you that way, it is very easy to internalize it. It's super easy to be like, oh, I'm weird and I'm the problem and I'm making everybody else uncomfortable, so there must be something wrong with me. I have been really lucky that my mom has never really let me think that way. My parents are both really supportive about it, and have made me comfortable expressing that like my whole life, it was like, it's okay to be different. And people are going to be shitty about it, but that doesn't make them right. It makes them close-minded. And that's a thing that I have like tried to carry with me about everything, about like, about neurodivergence, about gender, about sexuality, about that, like pretty much everything. I'm just like, yeah, I'm different, and that doesn't make anything worse. And I'm like one of the lucky people who has parents that are really good about it. That makes everything feel a little less uncomfy.
Yeah. So then we're on the topic of like expressing ourselves and our identities. So moving on to the next question, what ties into that. Once you came to the realization of your identity or identities, how comfortable were you expressing that and your feelings about it outwardly? And what factors made you feel whatever way about your identity and how you presented?
Yeah, for me, it was for sure my parents. My mom has always been really supportive of everything that I do and was like willing to fight for me when I didn't know how to do it for myself. Continues to do that. Did that through high school, and that like having like a support system makes it way easier to feel like it's okay to express yourself. So that's like a huge thing for me.
Well, honestly, I was kind of scared to tell anybody once I realized, because I have a member of my family who says the F slur on multiple occasions, even when he's just talking with his buddies. And yeah, that kind of got a little heavy. But with my mom, I never really came out and said it. I was just kind of like dropping kind of hints. Like when I was younger, my biggest thing was I don't want to marry a woman because they have cooties.
How long did you legitimately believe the girls had cooties? I am so curious. Like, how old were you when you stopped believing that? Would you say?
4th grade.
Oh my God. Oh,
I was denying myself because that was an excuse.
No, like I love that for you. That's excellent.
But like once I got to middle school, I was like, so like, what if I brought home a guy for dinner who was like my
friend,
best friend, insert air quotes, and she was just like, I don't care. I was like, oh, okay, I got something to tell you. I'm great at yodeling. Yes, that's how I came out.
I feel like I'm missing a joke here. What?
Take the first letter of each word. Great at yodeling.
Okay, yeah, that one's on me. Sorry.
Don't worry. It's just
I don't know if this is appropriate, and if not, we can totally cut it. But like, to me, I didn't think of like GAY. I thought of like, are you trying to reference like sucking dick or something?
Yeah,
that's what I
was like,
and I was like, oh, that's an interesting way to come out.
I was like, I mean, I also was on the sexual train. I was like, oh, okay.
I could have said yo-yo.
Yeah, that probably would have steered both of our brains in a different
Oh no,
direction.
it definitely would have.
Get your mind out of the gutter.
Never. You can't make me.
I'm actively going through puberty. There's like, I can't help it. I've got teenage boy brain.
There. But what about you, Hunter? What was yours like?
So it happened at the very beginning of the year, like as far as like me discovering my identity or whatever. And like it was like a slow burn kind of because like I started because like okay, so I was identifying as non-binary in like 2019. So I actually started identifying as non-binary when I was like 19, not when I was 20. And I was still like, you know how River said that he was identifying as like a non-binary lesbian. Like I, on the inverse, I was identifying as a non-binary gay man, I guess. So I was comfortable in that identity for a little bit, and then I was like incorporating skirts into my wardrobe and stuff like that. And then at some point, I kind of started to play around with the idea of like using she pronouns sometimes, but I didn't like they pronouns at all. But I kind of like the idea of using she pronouns.
Can I ask you? Did you have a pronoun pipeline?
Oh yeah, so it was like he first, and then eventually when I came out as non-binary, I was like he or she. And Emily was really good about like switching between all of them.
You've always got one friend that's
but I had I had a Twitter friend named Jordan, and she was the first person that started using she pronouns for me like quite regularly. And I remember I don't know what she was attacking me about something. I can't remember. Like she was dragging me about something, but she was like, my friend Hunter doesn't like something. And then all the comments were like, she's dumb, she's this, she's that, she's this. And I was looking through but like in a joking way. I was looking in the comments at like all these people referring to me as she,
and suddenly it clicked. Yeah,
yeah, it was really affirming. And so, it kind of like what?
So sorry, did you? The pipeline, is that a real thing? I had that too.
I called it the pronoun. I've heard it called the pronoun pipeline, where like it takes. That's what it's referred to when it takes a while for you to figure it out. Like my pronoun pipeline was she, her, she, they, she, they, them, they, he, they, he. Like I did all of it before I figured my shit out.
Yeah.
Like I tried neo pronouns before I tried he, him pronouns because I was so heavily in denial. I was like, I cannot be trans. I simply will not be a trans man because I hate men and I don't want to be a white man. I don't want to do it. I was like, I refuse to like become the thing I have sought to destroy my whole life. And I eventually gave in. I was like, okay, fine. I still actively use neopronouns. I just don't really talk about it because some people are really shitty about it. But like for sure, I used every set of I was like, it was the slowest transition there could have. It took me months to figure out that I was even not comfortable using she, her pronouns anymore. And then more months to figure out that I wasn't comfortable using they, them pronouns either. Because I was I had a moment where I was like, I would, and very briefly where I acknowledged like no one is ever going to see me as a man, and so the best thing that I can do is ask them to see me as non-binary because I will never be perceived the way I want to be, and so they, them is a good compromise.
Yeah, because like I was always like seeing like other trans girls on TikTok, and I was like, oh well, I'm not like passable, so like I'll just like a non-binary like femme, and like people will accept that because they're like, oh well, it's fine, like I'll still, people still see me as feminine, but like they'll never see me as a woman because like I don't look like, I'm not like passive or whatever.
For sure, it's like a crushing feeling to be like, I know what pronouns I want to use, but realistically no one is going to use them for me, and so I'll settle for something else.
I went from he, him to he or she, to any pronouns to she, they, he to she, they to she, her.
Yeah. And it's the workaround. It's like like, I don't know if this is true for any of y'all, but like for sure there was like a tiptoeing around like, if I admit it, then it's true. And so I'll use any pronouns except the ones I want to use.
Well, I was in this space too where people would ask me what my pronouns were, and I was like, and I would just not want to tell them. Like I almost like I didn't want, like I was in this period where I didn't even want people to use the right pronouns for me. Like I was just
Oh my God,
people would ask me about it, and I'd be like, you can just use whatever you want. Like
whatever.
Don't affirm me. Like what are you talking about? Just don't insane.
I think
just like no, don't affirm.
And my phase with that was, I think, almost entirely internalized transphobia, where I was like, don't acknowledge this thing that is wrong with me, because you'll just make it worse.
Well, you know how you said. Well, you know, you said you didn't want to be a white man.
Yeah.
My thing was, I was like, oh, that means I'm gonna be a Black trans woman. And Black trans women are at the very bottom of the totem pole.
Right.
Like, I'm gonna be at the very bottom. I'm gonna be the lowest of the low. Like I can't do that.
And like I was like, oh my God, I don't want to step into the privilege I've been condemning my whole life as like a feminist. I don't like my whole life I've been working against the white patriarchy. I don't want to like put myself as a part of that. You know what I mean? Like it's a thing of like, yes, I want to identify the way I want to, like in a way that makes me comfortable, but I don't want women to look at me and be like, that's a white man, because I have feminine experiences and I am on your side because I've experienced it. And I know that if I start passing, people are going to look at me and go, you're part of the problem, when I hate that. It's the worst. It sucks so bad because like we're fighting the same thing. I just look like a white man now. And so you're going to look at me and go, this guy's part of the issue. And you'll be right, but I hate that.
I think I was attached to my queer identity and it felt like losing it at first. And I was like, well, if I am a woman, like that means that I'm not gay anymore. And like, that's so tragic. Like, you know, cause I was just so attached and connected to that identity. And then realized that, like, I realized over time that wasn't my identity. And also I'm not like actually losing anything, even though it felt like that at first.
Yeah. It does feel like it feels like a weird loss of like, this is a thing that I have known about myself for so long. And suddenly I feel like I don't know who I am anymore, even though like,
especially for me, because I'm a straight trans woman. So like the way that like I live my life now, like most of the guys that I date are straight men. So like my dating life kind of mirrors, like it's very similar to queer people, just because like we still live in a trans misogynistic society. Like a few weeks ago, actually, a boy blocked me because he was like, oh, yeah, like I can't tell my family. Like I could never tell my family about us.
Oh my God, yeah.
Because they would like cut me off and all this other stuff. I still experience a lot of the things that people experience. But at the same time, like my dating,
it's just a little different.
Is that of like my cis female friends, because like I date. Yeah, so there's just like certain conventions, and there's like, you know, like I'm gonna get dressed up and like he's gonna pay, and like that's just like it's just it just is what it is. And I found now that I like the idea of like being seen as a Black girl specifically, like not just as a girl, but like being seen as a Black girl. And like I remember I was like interacting with another Black girl like at the bar, and this one Black girl, she was like, yeah, I just love when I get my nails done, and like I just like I just like use my hands more and I like click them, and like I just love that. And she just looks over at me and she was like, you know what I'm talking about, right? And I was like, yeah, like I know exactly what you're talking about. Like I love when I get my nails done and like I use my hands more and all that. And then I sat next to one of them and she was asking me like where I get my hair done. And I was like, oh, I've never got my hair done because like I've only recently came out and like I'm still new to the whole like black girl thing. And she like sent me her like the girl that does her hair, and like that was the most affirming thing ever to me, because like just the thought of like this probably sounds so stupid, but like the thought of just like having get like as a black girl now, like as a black trans girl, like the thought of like having a hairdresser and like having a hair appointment and being like, oh, I'm gonna go get my hair done, and like that whole thing is just like so affirming. I don't know, like just being like
I don't
like,
think
just the
that
thought
sounds
of like
stupid
I'm
at
gonna
all.
get a sew in and like I'm gonna like pick my hair out and like it's gonna like I don't know, like
No, like that sounds great.
And I think saying something is stupid because it affirms you is so like it's affirming. Bottom line,
it's such
it's something to celebrate
to do, like to just be like to just like downplay everything you say and like I have a bad habit of doing that.
I have a similar habit of doing that.
Yeah.
As like it's interesting to hear everyone's like experiences. I'm like, it's crazy to think about it, but like I'm like the only cis person of the group, like, and that's really really cool. Like I appreciate it because like it's just with sorry, I'm rambling because just like there are so many people who try to downplay like trans people, and I hate it. But like to have so many people who are trans in one place and be able to like hear you guys talk about your experiences, like that's just so fucking cool. And I'm like so glad you have a space for that. But like as for the question we were on about like your identity and stuff, I can't find a better way to just like put it in here because like my experience is, very much different from your guys's. So I'm just gonna like butt in if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So for me, like when I figured out that I was interested in women, I didn't care. Like I was great. I was happy about it. For like my brain, I had no problem about it. It was like just attraction to men was just really weird. But like in expressing my identity, I identified as pan for a little bit because obviously like, oh, well, if I'm attracted to a woman, then I must just be attracted to everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like coming out to my family at that point in time. I wasn't really ashamed about it, but I was worried like about what they would think because it wasn't, straight. I remember
I think there's some level of fear in any coming out ever, no matter how supportive someone's going to be. It's always like the, oh God, but what if thing is like,
yeah. So it's just like, I didn't have any shame about being like, oh yeah, I like girls. I like women. But it was funny because even though I identified as pan, if anyone insinuated, like middle school especially, this happened a lot, where if you were friends with a guy, I would have people say, oh, well, you must like him then, right?
You guys
like,
are so cute together.
there was this one guy that I was friends with in middle school named Jack. And since my name was Rose, people called us the Titanic non-fucking stop. And it made me so angry and mad. Like my best friend, we were really close. So you would have people occasionally like ask me, hey, how's your girlfriend like doing? Or like, hey, is that really your girlfriend? And my response would always be like, no, but like, like, but then anytime anyone would insinuate that I liked the guy, I would just be like, shut your fucking mouth. Don't ever say that again. I hate you. Like, which was like weird because I didn't really like realize I did that for a while until I'm starting to question whether I like men at all in high school.
And you're looking back and you're like, oh God. Oh no, God.
Because I thought that I dated, air quotes, because we didn't really do much. I dated a guy for a little bit in my freshman year of high school. And I just ended up realizing that I didn't like him that way. And I was just like, I made up excuses as to why. It wasn't, I'm not attracted to you. It's, oh, well, I guess I just lost those feelings for you. Or, oh, like you put me on a pedestal and that makes me uncomfortable. Which that was an issue, but it wasn't related to the attraction to it.
For sure. I think there's also like a portion for me as an individual with like severe ADHD of like, I would get hyperfixations on people and think that they were crushes when they weren't. Like being close to a person. And I don't know if that's like a relatable thing at all, but like, it's like there is a very sudden and inexplicable urge to like know everything about someone and be very close to them all the time. And it lasts for me, like from 3 weeks to like 6 months is the longest. And like it almost, once that time is up, it's up. Like that's it. The attraction is gone, because it wasn't really attraction to begin with. I just thought that it was, because it's the urge to be around someone. It's the urge to know someone really well. It's the urge to like be a part of their life like all the time. And it's like that for sure doesn't help with the issue with differing between platonic and romantic affection, because sometimes I'm like, is this a crush or is this a hyperfixation on a person that I literally cannot stop from happening? Because you never know until it's over.
Yeah, but then like there was this one other guy that I quote unquote liked, who ended up eventually starting to return those feelings. And while I was interested in him, he wasn't interested in me. I was like perfectly down with whatever my brain was coming up with. Then the moment he reciprocated, I was just like, don't even look at me. I hate you.
Yeah.
Like very aggressive.
For sure.
So it's like,
oh God,
it's
that's
just
literally
crazy
horrifying.
before I realized a lesbian, and it was still an issue after occasionally, my biggest problem with expressing my identity was that people wouldn't necessarily take people wouldn't really take my identity that seriously. Or it's like my attraction to women got downplayed by a lot of people, and then my attraction to men it's basically just compulsory heterosexuality and homophobia, but it's like my attraction to men would get upplayed. So if I'm friends with a guy, oh, you must be interested in him, you have to like him. Like I'd get people who were friends, family, no matter where, you'd always have people pressuring you to do that. And it made me really uncomfortable. Once I figured out I was a lesbian, I became a lot more like comfortable, and a lot like I was very aware of that. I don't like men. So if people did that, it didn't bother me as much. So I could just move past it. And being a lesbian and accepting the fact that I was a lesbian, like that for me was really, really freeing. Like I've heard a lot of people say that they think lesbianism, like as a label, is constricting. And it's like, if it is, it's not for you. Because for me and a lot of other lesbians,
it's very freeing.
It's just like, it's so great to have, because you have a society telling you should be this your entire life. And then you realize you're not that. And you find like accepting that yourself is one thing, but then finding an entire community that also has that experience and celebrates you being different. Like, I guess that's not really an experience that I think is dissimilar for anyone in the LGBT community, because we're all different in what society wants us to be in one way or another. So to accept our differences and celebrate them, like that's just always so amazing. But I think
that's why stuff like outreach is so important. Like I ended up really only showing up to outreach because I was in a severe depression coming out of high school, and like my mom made me go.
My friend got me to go.
You literally can't. She was like, you are not allowed to sit on the couch and be sad anymore. Or I found a thing where there are other queer people, and you're going to go and make friends. I hate to say it, you know, I still have a little bit of that teen angst where I'm like, I hate to admit that my mom's right, but I'm incredibly grateful. Like I went to queer prom with Noah Golier the year before COVID shut everything down. And then COVID shut down and I never came back. And then I graduated from high school and I was depressed and lonely. And my mom was like, you're going to go make queer friends. And that community has since been invaluable. Like I cannot say how much, like I keep telling this story and it sounds all dramatic, but like outreach saved my life, man. Like I'm not going to pretend that it didn't. It's something that I like needed and was actively refusing to do because I was like, I know what I'm about. I know what I need. I did not know what I wanted or needed.
That happens all the time as a teenager.
I feel like it was like a positive thing for me to like interact with so many trans people, especially with so many like with the trans feminine people that I interacted with, and like through like finding spirit, I ended up being friends with another trans woman, which was like new for me just because I don't have a lot of trans female friends like in real life. I only have one other friend that is also a trans woman. So like having a friendship with another trans girl, like as a trans girl, is just such a special thing. And like I wouldn't have that if I didn't go, like if I wasn't involved in outreach. So like I get what River is saying in a sense.
Yeah. I had trans friends in high school, but they were all trans masculine. And so like being able to interact with trans femmes at outreach was very, very cool.
Okay, so River, you just like unintentionally answered the next question we were going to bring up. So I'm just going to put it out there. We can continue on from there. So how did everyone here get introduced to outreach, and what role did it play in your overall development as a young adult? So
I will go ahead and take my cards out since I already answered. Sorry.
No, you're okay. I mentioned it earlier, but I got introduced to outreach by one of my friends. Technically, I got introduced to outreach before I started going, because in freshman year of high school, I had a friend named Zake who would constantly, well, I don't know if we were friends, but we knew each other and we got along well. And he would always like say, hey, you should come to outreach. But I would always be like, no, because I'd have to figure out transportation and I don't think I can do that. So like I didn't go. But then my friend Bronwyn convinced me to go. And I like went with them, another friend named Daisy. So it was essentially like that. It took me a long time to get comfortable at outreach. Like it took like a couple of months before I was like, okay, I am okay here. Just because transitioning to new people can take a long time for me. Trauma shit, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It just fucks with your shit. But like, it's essentially like a second like family now. I love it. It's great. Being able to have a place that I can go to where I can not only feel comfortable in my own identity, but see other people comfortable in their own as well and learn more about our community as a whole. Like, you can do that online just fine, but it's a completely different experience in person to do that. And it's like so much better.
Absolutely. Seeing like, I am like regularly attending youth group, and like we've got a bunch of new kids who have been coming in, and a lot of them are homeschooled, and like seeing them get to interact with other kids face to face that are like them is really wonderful. And it's an experience that like I pretty much only hung out with other queer kids in high school because like, I don't know, it was safer and more comfortable, but we had other interests in common. And like, we would mostly talk about that instead of our mutual transness. And like getting to hang out with people and talk about that experience that weren't people my age exclusively, like talking to kids who were younger than me, who were going through the same things that I was going through 3 years ago, and like being able to help them and like mentor them through that was like a really cool experience. But also being able to talk to trans people who have been transitioning for a long time and who have adjusted already was very cool.
Similar. I'm sorry. I don't want to like interrupt or else having a conversation. Sorry. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, like, I had a sort of similar experience where it's like there weren't a lot of other lesbians my age. But there were like a couple of older lesbians, and being able to like see them and meet them and hear their experiences was really. So I mean, like a couple of them were like married. And it was like, as a young lesbian,
it's so wonderful.
Like, it's wonderful in general, but like, I'm a hopeless romantic, but I also sometimes struggle with the idea of like me being able to have that kind of experience. So it's just like seeing that, like just in person, just like, wow, it is great.
For real. Like seeing other people who have like, who are adjusted and who are like happy. I'm like, oh my God, I can have that.
I can have a life. I can be a wife.
Yeah.
It's completely different than like
fully like having trans friends that are in high school and having queer friends that are in high school is all well and good, right? Like it's important to have friends who are like you, who are your own age, but also like seeing people who are living it and like have been living it for a long time. Oh, it hits fully differently. It's just so great to like be a part of a community where people are like, we have different interests and we're different people, but we have this thing in common, instead of like having a lunch table that's kind of an echo chamber. As much as I love my friends from high school, right? we all are kind of the same person in different fonts, and it's very cool to like not to have people who have different opinions and different experiences at the table with you face to face, instead of like over a Discord call, or people that you met on the internet. Like, those people are also really wonderful, but it's a whole different thing to like have that in real life and be able to like shake their hand and hug them and talk to them on a regular basis and see that with your own eyes instead of through a screen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's how I felt like with meeting other trans women and just seeing like the diversity of femininity, and like that is like outside of like what it kind of made me more comfortable with my own femininity, seeing all these different diverse versions of what femininity was. And so like I'm less concerned with passability or trying to look like a supermodel, and now I'm just trying to like live my life as a woman and do things that I'm proud of, more so than I am trying to like fit whatever I think men see as the most acceptable thing, even though I am a straight trans woman.
Yeah, that's a hard thing too, living for yourself and not for others.
Yeah. Because Compet kind of like frames men being like the most important thing in a woman's life, like it makes it to where like sometimes we as women can kind of frame our entire like womanhood around like being acceptable to men or like getting a man, and especially like trans women, when we come into that identity, like at the very beginning stages, I feel like I was very concerned with like how men perceived me or how men saw me. And I feel like that's when I was like at my lowest and at my most insecure. And so now I've like come into my own, where it's like, I'm still like a hyper feminine girl, and like I still like doing all that stuff, but like it's all for me. And like I'm more so concerned with the things that I do in life, and like the things that, and like how I treat other people, and like how I treat other women, and like what kind of woman I'm becoming, more so than I care about like, will men find that attractive? Because I feel like the kind of men that I want to be with are going to appreciate that much more than like whatever perfect ideal they like most men have in their heads, you know? I don't know if that makes sense.
No, yeah, it does.
I actually was told about outreach from my counselor.
Can I ask school or personal?
Personal.
Okay. I was gonna say it would be so fucking radical if school counselors talked about us.
I went to Northside.
Yeah.
I know no fucking way.
I know it was a stretch, but God, how cool would that be?
But this was around.
Wait. I'm sorry, just real quick. You could call it a stretch, but you could also call it an outreach. Thank you, everybody. Okay.
God damn it.
Go, Jordan. Floor is yours.
I don't even want to answer the question now.
Go ahead.
But honestly, I think I'm the oldest one who's been to outreach out of our cast, because I've been going there for 5 years now. Actually, I think it might be coming up on 6. I could be wrong. I could be right. I don't even know.
I think I've been going for about 3 years, roughly.
I've only been going for 3 months. So
yeah.
Sorry.
That does make me feel a little better. I thought I was going to be the baby with like 9. That makes me feel a little bit better about myself.
I only started going in like September.
But
yeah.
It was around the time when we had our prom, and I was absolutely terrified to go, because partially I was like, I don't want to go and be around. Okay, keep in mind I was in middle school, so I had a different mindset. And the only experience of gay people I had were kind of like the toxic theater kids. who were like,
I'm gonna keep my mouth shut on that one, actually.
Yeah, who were like thought they were better than everybody else, and like if you didn't know every lyric of every song of every musical, that you were an outcast.
I'm not gonna pretend that I wasn't one of those kids because I totally was, but I learned very quickly that was like a dick move, and like that's a really shitty way to be. But I for sure was one of those kids, and I would like to apologize on our behalf. I'm very sorry. We're terrible people. Some of us get better.
But I dragged like 3 of my friends to the prom with me, and that's the night I messed up my knee awfully. But I still had an amazing time.
I love how like almost all of us have mentioned gay prom. Gay prom was where I finally admitted to myself that I was a lesbian.
I actually went to one of those my junior year.
I went with Noah. Oh God, it was a lot of fun.
I went 2 years in a row. The first year I just admitted to myself I was a lesbian. The second year, I'm pretty sure I flirted with a girl there, but like we were friends and we knew each other. But like it was still like, wow, whoa, okay, I did that. That's crazy. But anyway,
I wore a horrible dress because my egg hadn't cracked yet. It was there were condom balloons. It was awesome.
I wore these beach pants that my mom picked out because there's no way I was gonna wear anything else.
It was
my junior year.
It was like 80s themed because it was based off Stranger Things.
Yeah.
I remember that.
And I showed up with a David Bowie lightning bolt on my face.
I remember that.
It was a rainbow.
I remember that. Mm-hmm. I remember I'd like seen before I met you, Jordan, I had seen you at all kinds of events, and I was just like, you're one of those people that is like, as someone who is 5'2", and you're a very tall individual, and I'm inherently scared of tall people as someone who is 5'2", I was like, that's someone who is so cool, and I know I would get along with, but I am terrified to introduce myself to them.
No, you're right, because my nickname is Giant Teddy Bear.
For real.
Aww,
like
you're very huggable.
You're someone who seems like you would be approachable, but I have like severe social anxiety. And so
that is understandable.
Mm-hmm.
If you never came up and talked to me, I would never hold it against you.
Yeah.
To that one, I wore like a cute outfit. Like I wore my hair up in a high ponytail to the side with like a funny little top and like a skirt. I felt so fucking adorable going to that thing. I was adorable.
I think Noah was the only person I knew, and Noah knew, like Noah was going to Outrage regularly, and we were friends from school. So like, I didn't know anybody, and I was terrified the whole time. I was like, I know these are my people, but how do I talk to them? I was probably a freshman. What year was that? God. I mean,
you're year older than me, right? So
8th grade or a freshman, I think I would have been, because Noah hadn't graduated yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. I was terrified to be there, but it was so much fun. And then I came to one game day after that for D&D, and then everything got shut down because of COVID. And I was like, great, I'll never go back.
So,
understandable.
Since we're all talking about like the shared experience and sort of about like meeting each other, but not really, how did we all get to know each other outside of this podcast? Unless that was, I know for me, I knew Jordan and Hunter, but I didn't know you, River, until this podcast.
I knew you in middle school. I knew you and Diamond in middle school.
You knew both?
Yeah.
I didn't know. I didn't know your actual like name at that point, so I probably can't connect it.
Yeah, I'm not going to give you my dead name on this podcast.
Don't do it. Don't do it ever. I don't need that. I know you now. That's enough.
But I think we all rode the same bus home. So I knew you guys, but I think you guys were in 8th grade when I was a 6th grader, and so obviously I was never going to fucking talk to you. That's terrifying.
Well, Diamond was a year older than me, and she rode the bus, but I didn't. I walked to and from my house because it was really close to my middle school.
Oh, gotcha.
But
you were a Northside kid, though, right?
Yeah, I love
Okay.
what going into this question. Like, I just love the fact that like we all know each other now, but we all like inadvertently knew each other just because we were in the same school system.
I knew River because we had did.
We did civic together for a long time.
We were both civic kids, and I remember you were in Guys and Dolls with me, and I remember like. I still remember this. Like, I remember when we did circle, like we were doing the circle thing, and we would like talk about or whatever. And you coming out as bisexual. Like, yeah, I remember that. Like, I remember that. I thought that was really
honestly
cool that you did that.
That was what.
Like, I never like talked to you because I was like a freshman. So
I was really excited about it at that like. When I did it, and then almost immediately regretted doing it because it like I love civic. I don't actually, that's a lie, but I loved civic for a really long time, and almost immediately like other girls did not want to hang out with me anymore.
Which is just funny because all of them hung out with like other gay. I won't say names, but they used to hang out with an other.
No, I know exactly who you're talking about. I'll name names if you don't want to. They hung out with like Chase and Tyler.
Yeah.
Yeah, but because they are palatable gay, right? Like, it's super interesting the way that like men react to gay men and women react to lesbians in the same way, but then both will fetishize the opposite sex.
I know, it's so fucking ugh.
It's super yucky and extra gross because every girl I knew wanted a gay best friend but didn't want to change in the same room as a girl who liked girls.
The thing that I hated about our program is that like everyone used to have the stereotype of like all theater boys are gay and like all the theater programs, all gay people, and I used to just sit there like my entire theater program is all straight men, but
literally all of them except for Chase.
Yeah, it was literally just me and Chase. Like, that was it. There were no other gay men. Like
me, but I didn't know that yet.
Which is funny because we used to always be up for the same roles, and I would always lose.
Well, because he's white. Sorry, I need to keep my mouth shut. I have so much tea that I could spill about civic kids.
There's only one time I beat him out for a role, and that was it. Literally just once.
Actually, this is actually kind of a funny story. I met River at game day, and I genuinely thought, I love this person. They need to be in the podcast. The next day,
I was in the podcast
you show up to a podcast meeting. I'm like, what?
No, well, you know how Laura is. She guilted me into it as soon as she could.
I mean, was she wrong?
No, I mean, no. I really love this group, and it's really great. And if they were here, I would also say that like I met Luke at Burris when I transferred before either of us had cracked our eggs, and so we knew each other. I don't know if he knows that. I know that. That I knew Luke at Burris very briefly before I transferred back to the community school system.
To keep going off Luke, me and him met in 8th grade. We were the most socially awkward people.
That doesn't shock me in the slightest.
But the thing was, Luke kept pressuring me to come to outreach, which I actually came to outreach before Luke. And like, we were just like, we were honestly like menaces to society at that school.
That also does not shock me. Middle schoolers are terrible, no matter how cool they are.
And
sorry, I don't want to interrupt.
To any middle schoolers listening. We love
middle school is rough.
Don't talk to us. Sorry, that's so mean. I don't mean that.
This is a genuine message to middle schoolers. You're not cool. Stop trying to be cool. Just deal with your things and try and get good grades.
Being cool is overrated anyway. Like,
it is.
For real, I spent my entire middle and high school career trying to be cool, and then the minute high school ended, I was like, oh my god, I'm free.
As a middle schooler, I was insanely cringy. I
Everyone is in middle school. I was a Dan and
had
Phil kid. I get it.
No, yeah, I was a homestuck in middle school. So.
Oh my god. Honestly, I don't. That makes sense.
No, I was also like, I hate to say it because it's literally the cringiest thing ever and I hate it. I also had a Hitalia phase before I developed critical thinking skills and took just even a second to look at it and think, wait a minute.
Rose.
It's so bad. It's literally so bad. Middle school sucks. No matter how good you think
so
it is,
bad.
it sucks. And you're going to look back on it and think, that was fucking terrible. But then you're going to think, oh, wait a minute. I'm better now, so it's okay. Just don't be too hard on yourself. Yeah.
I think I met Hunter actually in choir at high school, but like we never talked.
I think we both auditioned for 12 Angry Jurors.
No, I wasn't there yet.
No?
My freshman show was Rapunzel.
I thought we auditioned for the same production of something because I remember you introducing yourself.
Rapunzel.
Maybe we're in the same theater class. It had something to do with theater.
Yeah, but like we met like a couple times, but we never really properly introduced each other until like this.
Sorry, wait. Time out. Speaking of theater introductions, Rose, didn't you do Once on This Island?
I did do that.
I think that was the first time we ever interacted. I did Once on This Island at Northside.
Cool.
With a white girl as T Moon. It was really great.
Love that so much.
No, yeah, that was rough.
It was Northside. What do you expect?
It was Northside. Okay, on the topic of Northside had some issues. When I was an 8th grader, our choir show had so many problematic implications. It was just,
my god! Was that still under Vicky Jeffers when you were in 8th grade?
Or was it someone
else? Oh my god!
It was Jeffers because my 8th grade year, she left.
It was.
That woman teaches driving classes now. She was my driver's ed.
She was mine too.
So then I met you then, but like I didn't know that. I didn't know you well enough to remember you, but I know you now. I met Hunter. I met Hunter in middle school, and I remember her, but like I only really like knew her name and knew more about her in high school, but we still weren't really close. We had AP Psych together.
I was a cunt in middle school. Oh my god. No, I'm so serious. Like I used to hate, like especially in 6th grade, like I was such a bitch. Like when people tell
I was also really awful in middle school.
When people tell me that you're in middle school, I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry because like, I really used to just.
Oh god, I like carried over some real cringe tendencies from elementary school into middle school. Like I hissed at people because I was one of those girls. And like every time I'm the same way that every time someone's like, oh yeah, I remember you from middle school. I'm like, oh my god, I'll pay for a therapy appointment if you want it. Like for real, I was a biter for whatever. Like
I was like in my plastics era because like I was friends with 2 other girls, and so like we were just like in our plastic era, just like
oh my god, I remember that. You kind of had like a mean gay type of like vibe.
Yeah, like, I was literally like,
oh yeah, you did have that vibe.
I was like gay Karen Smith, like
oh my god.
Oh,
like sometimes like I feel like a lot of AMAB gay people when they first come out like have their whole phase where their personality is being gay and mean. I for sure had that too.
I had that.
No, this is really funny to me because like I mentioned, Hunter and I had we had an AP Psych class together.
Mm-hmm.
I was in 10th grade, and there were occasional times where our like eyes would meet because we sat across the room from each other, and I would just like I would get worried that you were glaring at me, but I'd like it was the stupidest thing because like I knew you vaguely enough to know that like you were pretty decent and nice. But maybe you were friends with someone named Rebecca, and she was really fucking mean.
Oh my god!
It was that. I hated her. Sorry, Rebecca, if you're listening, but I don't think you are because you're sort of lame. Okay, sorry.
This is just a name drop episode.
Oh my god, we're just being so mean to random people who are probably not even listening.
anyone here who's named Rebecca, you're probably better than she is. Sorry. Okay.
I named
the
up like
thing is,
3 civic
those
kids. I'm
people
so sorry.
The thing
Um,
they don't even probably watch our episodes, but it's just
Yeah, please.
replace the name Rebecca with
Yeah. They have to all be different sound effects.
How about this? Let's just replace them all with Karen.
Honestly.
Karen. There you go with that. Just kidding.
Yeah. Karen. There you go. There's your soundbite.
But yeah, so then like I got to meet Hunter more because of outreach, which has been really cool. And then Jordan, we met and connected primarily through outreach. Luke, I got to know Luke better through outreach, but I actually met him when he was a freshman at Central because he came up to my lunch table once and asked to like sit with me and my friends, and we like talked and stuff. So that was really interesting. But
Word.
yeah.
Honestly, like the whole thing about only having one high school. Sorry, I need to shut up.
No, it's okay. No, you don't need to shut up. I'm just with the time constraints. Like I want you to be able to speak. I just also like with the time.
That's why I need to shut up.
No, you're great. Okay, so
kidding.
It's just so interesting to hear all of our experiences and like knowing each other versus like getting to know each other. So that's this. I love that question. This has been fun. But then moving on to like a different kind of note. Since all of us and our podcast is located in Indiana, like what has your experience been growing up here as someone who's LGBT, considering that Indiana is like Indiana?
I feel like it's been a mixed bag because like we live in a very interesting part of the world because like we live close to the Bible Belt, but we
Not
also in the Midwest.
Aren't we in it?
We're like in the Rust Belt.
Yeah,
we're
in the Rust Belt.
The Rust
Kentucky,
Belt
I
and then the
think.
Bible Belt is southern, or more
But
south.
Kentucky, I think, is
South?
Bible Belt.
What the fuck?
But we also happen to live in a college town. So like the way I describe Muncie is like Muncie is like the really like the indie like the hipster like child of like a conservative family. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Area, but like just imagine like a conservative family get together and like the really cool child with
Your
like
cool
the
cousin
jacket with all the pins on it and stuff like that. Like that's what Muncie kind of is. Like they still have like all of the internalized like conservative ideals that are pushed on to them by like surrounding like factors, but then there's also the really cool things too. I don't know if that makes so it's like it makes your experience here as a queer person interesting because you have the side of Muncie that is very conservative and very like backwards, and then you have the side of Muncie that is very progressive and is moving.
You can just say downtown. It's fine.
Yeah, basically.
I mean, it's funny to hear you say that because in a way you're very accurate because Muncie is literally one of the most average towns in all of the United States. But a little bit of fun history bit here. Muncie was there was like a study done called the Middletown Studies here in Muncie because it was such an average town that the researchers set up the study was able to essentially say like this is a good representation
of the whole country.
Yeah, it's a good representation. It has like similar population balance and political views to like the overall country. So it's literally like our experiences here, specifically in Muncie, Indiana, might be
so
completely different from another place in Indiana, which makes it weird. So like, I know that there has been discrimination in Muncie, and just in Indiana in general. I luckily have not been a major target of that because most of the people in my life are very affirming and nice. But it's like, I'll have like compulsory heterosexuality pushed on me all the time, which sucks. Internalized homophobia, I'm lucky to not have to deal with that, but I know that there are people who do, like a relative of mine who's older, like has to deal with that and figuring out their identity because they learned it while growing up in Muncie. And I know a lot of my friends have dealt with outright discrimination in school and from family. My like main experience as a lesbian and just as someone who likes women, is like people would just not care. Like I'd be very much, hey, I'm a lesbian, and it would just be like, okay, whatever, who cares? And then like,
You have fun with
I don't know. And it's like I'm lucky to have that as opposed to something that's like worse. But
I feel like as a trans woman, like my experiences haven't been as negative as I thought they would be. Like I thought, like when I especially when I thought when I would go out and stuff like that I would be harassed a lot more. But that hasn't really happened as much. There's only like it at least I feel like we're at a point now where even if somebody wants to say something negative, it doesn't. Those people don't feel as though it is socially acceptable to like.
Yeah. They've gotten way less brave about it.
Yeah, to be like outwardly cruel to me because it will at least make them look like a bad person, if that makes sense. Because like I guess last week there were a group of a group of older men that were there, and they asked the bartender, they were like, oh hey, was that black chick, was she a dude or whatever? They were asking the bartender there that I knew there that, and I was like, oh, so that's why they kept staring at me. I was like, okay, that's just wonderful. But the bartender like literally like kicked them out.
Good. That's great.
Yeah. And they were like, I was surprised that she did. Well, I was personally surprised that she did it because those guys tip a lot. But she was like, I don't care. I don't want your like transphobic money. And I was like, I love you.
No, yeah, that's one thing that's great is that like there are places that will treat you like shit for not being cishet, but there are a lot of places here in Muncie where you can find affirming people, which is really cool.
Yeah. And it's really great because a lot of them are concentrated into like, we kind of all know where our safe spaces are. And there are maybe outliers in those locations, but like being downtown, being on campus is mostly going to be an affirming environment, or at the very least, not like actively harmful. Obviously, you know, like college-aged men are always going to be gross, myself included. Like there's like some level of yuckiness that I think comes with the first freedom you've ever had and the ability to drive and yell things at women from your car. But like, you know, there's also like a lot, like I think the benefit of being a college town is like there are people who are like educated and actively like working to change things, which is I think a cool benefit. But it's also like there are a lot of very closed-minded people who are getting higher education because it's good for the capitalist lifestyle. And like I've had some really shitty things said in some of my college classes, not about like trans people or queer people, but just in general, like, I don't know, some people that are clearly not as open-minded as I would. Granted, I'm an Ivy Tech student, not a Ball State student. So it's like a lot of people who are going back to college who maybe don't have those ideals that like the younger generation has. But I think like the most discrimination I've ever experienced was just like high school boys being high school boys, which is kind of a thing that everybody has to deal with, including other high school boys. Like, you know, that subsect of people who went to your high school who are just shitty to everybody for no reason. It's like, it's like, those kids.
No, there were a ton of guys. That's probably the place where I heard discrimination the most was guys in high school. The amount of people who would make like gay jokes, and then like I'd be like, hey, you shouldn't be making those jokes that aren't cool. And then they'd be like, it's just a joke. And it's like, but it's not, because it has these ideological implications of like being gay is bad and something to discriminate against and make fun. Like, it's just
I remember my senior year, I was going home on the bus and some guy behind me, I was with my friend Sage, and some guy behind me, for all intents and purposes during this story, every time I say the F slur, the phrase, just replace it with the actual thing in your head, because obviously this person was not courteous enough to do that. But there's this kid behind us on the bus who's like just talking to his friend, not even talking to us, who's like, someday I would love to get to call a gay person the F slur to their face.
I hope that guy gets punched in the face repeatedly. Sorry if that's too bad.
No, well, because I'm belligerent and rude, my ass whipped around and was like, all right, do it then. I'm offering, I'm right here, I'm letting you do it. Go on. This kid just turns beet fucking red. And I'm like, no, you said it out loud in a space where other people could hear you. Do it. I, for sure, was just like kind of an asshole about it. But it's like teenage boys being shitty and like the internalized homophobia and transphobia and ableism that is in a lot of teenage boys, where they're like, oh, edgy, dark humor is so funny. I'm going to make fun of people who are minorities to make myself feel better. It's like, oh, honey, please.
That's an experience that I had in middle school where it's like, because a lot of TERFs will say like, oh, you know, you're like, you have male privilege, you had male privilege and blah 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 blah, and like to an extent, yeah, like not experiencing misogyny directly, like as a young person, it's like definitely a privilege. But I feel like what TERFs don't acknowledge a lot of times is that like even if you are a man who experienced that, like if you fail at what being a man is, you get punished for that too. Like, so it's like, and so I grew up as like, I was never masculine. Like I was never, ever masculine. Even when I tried to be masculine, I wasn't. And so like, I faced homophobia pretty much since like elementary school. Like I used to get called the F slur, like when I was like 9 years old and I didn't even identify like as queer. And so it's like, I never had the experience of fully getting to experience like what it is like to be a man and fully reap the benefits of what masculinity is. I was always seen as somebody who was a failed masculine person, which in the eyes of other men is seen as almost worse than being a woman in a way. So it's
sort
like,
of, oh, sorry, I don't, it's just like hearing you talk about that. It's definitely very interesting to me. One, because your point definitely isn't that I feel like a lot of people would also have. But then, like bringing up the topic of TERFs, like pointing out, oh, like you didn't have to deal with misogyny growing up. Why does being a woman have to be defined by the discrimination we face? Like that kind of question just pops up to me all the time because it's just like people. A lot of TERFs will equate like misogyny. Like, and I get that being like dealing with misogyny is an experience that we have, and you know, but defining womanhood by pain and suffering, that just really rubs me the wrong way.
And the thing that they don't acknowledge is that I also face misogyny now too. Like,
yeah.
And like their hang up is like, but you didn't face it as a young person. Why are we defining our like womanhood by the amount of discrimination we faced as children? And I think there's also a thing of like, I had a guy at Burris tell me once that I was only interested in transitioning because I wanted male privilege, which is, by the way, in case you were curious, not how that works.
It's not, no.
But like, this was a person who denied male privilege even existed and was like, you just want to transition because you think you'll get privilege as a man. I was like, actually, sir, no. And I think that's a big, like, there are so many people here, like, and a lot of the people I've had to deal with have been like, I don't mean to speak ill of religion, except yes, I do. Most of the people that I've had problems with have been like pastors' kids or like kids who have been indoctrinated into churches from the time they were very young, because that's a big part of like culture here is like, there's a big Jesus thing. And like, I don't have any problem with religion itself. I just feel like if your religion is discriminating against people for stuff they can't control, is it really a good religion? I could talk about that for hours.
No, yeah, for that, it's just like being religious is fine, but using a religion as an excuse to hurt people isn't. But then, like I said earlier, essentially, like my main experiences with discrimination growing up here have been either out of ignorance or just things that are learned. And it's like, both of them are bad. But so I wanted to ask, our conversation has been really great, but Jordan, just in case you're struggling to find a good entry point, what has your experience been? I'm curious. I want to hear your voice because I really appreciate you and I'm very glad that you're here. And I'm like,
yeah.
All right.
I just kind of grew up with it. Like with certain people in my family who grew up in a small town, that word was thrown around every other sentence. So it's like, I don't know, honestly, which is worse. Me getting bullied in middle school or getting yelled at like twice by a speeding car.
Fuck, dude.
Both
Like,
of them are bad. And it sucks that
like-
you had to go through that. You shouldn't have had to.
Honestly, it's just, it is what it is.
Yeah, at some point,
So-
I think you do get used to it, which sucks.
It just, unless, see, at this point, I'm like, at least get creative. Don't just call me the F slur as you're driving by. Like,
Honestly,
get
it gets so played
creative
out.
with your hate crime.
I mean, I appreciate the idea. I'm not trying to like diss on you, but at the same time, like, I think it's sort of a good thing when people aren't creative because then it's easier to
I know, I know, but just like,
But
it's
yeah.
like it's so played out most of the time. The word doesn't even affect me anymore.
Which I get, like, it can be seen as both a positive and a negative thing. Like, getting desensitized to that kind of thing is very
not great.
clear. It's like, it can be a trauma response. But also,
Mhm.
like, at the very least, it doesn't affect you anymore. I get it, though. Like, my coping mechanism is very, like, humor-based. And so, like, when people don't say anything creative, I can't make fun of them for anything. When they say, like, clever and new things, I'm like, oh, that was fascinating. Let's dissect that. And
Actually,
for me-
I think the worst thing that's ever really happened to me, a guy who I used to actually kind of be friends with in elementary school, came up to me, hit me on the arm, and called me the F slur, and said, "I will beat your ass if you ever touch me again." I didn't even touch him.
bro,
So it's just people
straight
being
people are so weird.
Yeah.
Straight people are fucking crazy.
Not all of them, but just a good portion of them.
No offense to our creative team, who is largely straight. We love you guys, but you are weird as shit.
Yeah.
No offense to straight people. Y'all are strange and weird, and I don't get it. Love you,
Also,
Hunter.
shout out to straight trans people.
Oh,
like,
yeah, no kidding.
But like also I'm like, honestly, it could be worse in Indiana.
Yeah.
Because Muncie, we have a lot of queer-owned businesses that are fantastic. Like, you know what I'm gonna say? Queer chocolatier. Fucking love their
And,
chocolate.
Love Morgan. Shout out to Morgan.
And honestly, here we have some pretty good businesses. And it's not like we hear it on a daily basis. Like, we don't get yelled at all the time. But still, we got some work to do to make everybody feel accepted.
Yeah, I don't
Mhm.
want to
And
make a whole thing about the legislative stuff that's going on right now. Like, that,
Yeah.
I think, is going to be a separate episode. But, like, it for sure could be worse. Like,
Yeah.
which obviously I'm a big person who's like, we don't do comparative suffering. The it could be worse argument is bullshit and we should never use it. But,
mhm.
like, yeah, life kind
That's
of
all.
sucks. Life kind of sucks in a red state as a queer person, but that we don't have those child abuse laws. We don't have that don't say gay legislation yet. There are people who
Yeah,
are working on that, but
And
Yeah.
most definitely, like, I think about, because there's a trans girl, I think she lives in Malaysia, but like she literally had to like spend hours trying to like convince her family she wasn't gay, not convince her family she wasn't a trans woman, but that she wasn't gay. And so she has to hide all of her feminine stuff from them, like, because if they ever find her out, like, she could literally like go to prison. So she has to like literally leave her entire country and entire family, like just live as her true self. And so it's like, I think about that sometimes when I like think, and I'm like, that's so far away from what I have to experience. Like, because to some capacity, like, I know that I could still dress as my true self, and I know that I'm not going to be in prison for that. Like,
I think it's
Mhm.
important that we acknowledge
And,
our privileges for that.
Yeah. It being in Indiana, there is the opportunity for bad things to happen. And I mean, literally, just there's being in IU, like just being in college, I guess, is a better way to put it. I've met people from other places of Indiana, like small towns that are hyper conservative, very much like it is not okay to be gay. You can get like seriously hurt for it and shit like that. So like we're very lucky to be in Muncie and to have a fair amount, or like, you know, we still have our problems, but we do have a lot of people who are accepting and who are open, which is really, really cool. Sort of like going on to a different note here, multiple times throughout the podcast episodes so far, we've had people mentioning theater. So honestly, just in general, I feel like a lot of LGBT people are very artsy. So since a lot of us here have been involved with art stuff, whether it be theater or just like actual art, how's your experience being LGBT shaped your experiences with art and just creative expression in general?
Okay, I will say it has given me a lot of material to work with. Because I can write plays about what it's like to be gender non-conforming. I can write poetry about bills that are being passed in Florida. I can draw like how I feel on the inside. I can do all these things because I have a lot of experience to use.
Yeah.
My main experience.
Sorry.
This is going to be really short and simple. My main experience in influencing my art is just drawing women kissing, and drawing women all the time. Literally,
so
like
true.
I can't draw men that well. I primarily just draw a bunch of women.
I am precisely the. I don't know how to draw women.
I've actually
hard and complicated.
I mean, you did Picasso, so
I don't know how
women
true this is,
kissing.
but I've actually heard that an artist, you're better at drawing who you're attracted to. Since you're better at drawing women, you can draw women. Since I'm more attracted to men, I can draw men.
It's because I stare at men all the time. That's
because
really,
you stare at them all the time.
Yeah.
I feel like
a lot of staring at men.
I feel like because I am a lover of fuckboys, I have a lot of material for poetry because I don't know why, but I just like I see a boy who's like dumb and hot and he's wearing like a backwards cap and like basketball shorts.
Oh my god, it's me.
Like boys that like wear like basketball shorts and backwards caps and they still say words like shorty and shit like that. Like that have like a shit ton of like internalized homophobia. Like they give me so much to write about.
Mama's boys, girl.
They are just like they're so simple yet so complicated, and like I could probably write like 100 poems about them. Like honestly, like I don't know.
I'm not proud of this. I've written like 3 bits of poetry about a few crushes I've had, so you're not the only one in that boat.
I was never like when I did poetry for a long time, I was never like a romantic kind of poet. I like my transition, like cracking my egg was really difficult, like for me at home and like personally. I wrote a lot of really, really depressing poetry before I figured out that I was trans because I could tell that I felt trapped in my own body. I just didn't know why. And so I wrote a lot about that. And I channeled that into music and I channeled that into theater. Because I was like a really big band kid. And so like all of my audition pieces were incredibly sad, like all the time. Just like like my audition song for theater for a very long time was Home from Beauty and the Beast, which the whole song is about like, I'm trapped in this. I'm trapped in this tower by someone who is more powerful than I am. And I don't know if I'm ever going to be like safe again. And so like, I didn't understand why it resonated with me, but it really did for a long time. And once I figured it out, I was like, great, now I got to find a dude song that has that emotion.
On the topic of songs, like I was a choir kid in high school. I technically 8th grade too, but mainly high school. And just like, that definitely impacted the way I related to some of the music. Like, when I got into the choirs, there were like, they had all girls do a song in the advanced choirs, and then all the guys from the advanced choirs do a song. And most of the time, the girls' song was about, oh, wouldn't you know it?
Men,
like, romance, that kind of stuff.
It always like,
it was
They do
always
us
just
so
so
dirty.
weird for me. Like, it wasn't relatable to me,
Yeah.
which was always really awkward and like weird. But then like one of the ways I think it influenced me, there were two different times where my lesbianism definitely impacted heavily the way I reacted to a song. Like there was one, it was this is maybe a crime for some people, but like I don't know a whole lot about like Queen and their kind of music, but I think it was Somebody to Love.
Yeah.
That song. Yeah, we did that song, and all of this, like knowing more about Freddie Mercury and about the like him talking about the song. Like as a lesbian, I can see that song and know like the different bits that are relating to his sexuality and his experiences,
Right.
and just like this idea of feeling like you're not going to be able to find somebody to love. Yeah, that resonated with me a lot, and it literally just like when the teacher was expressing how the song is one about like really wanting to have that and like struggling to find it and like just yearning, like I don't feel like a lot of the people in the class got that in the same way that I did,
because it's such a homoerotic song that
it's
like
just, yeah,
sometimes like I think there are some Queen songs that are definitely for straight people. That's not one of them. Like
no,
that one is for us. Yeah, I mean, speaking of choir, I was a high soprano for a really long time, even after puberty. Like that was kind of my thing in theater and in choir, was like when someone couldn't hit the high notes, I could.
Yeah, I was an alto, so I wish I could do
I
that.
used to always try to sing second soprano. Like the second sopranos would be like, "Oh, can I just sing
Hold on.
with
So-
us today?" And our teacher would be like, no.
Well,
But
once
continuing on,
that
yeah.
was my niche, right? Like
Yeah.
and I started experiencing vocal dysphoria. Like once people like pinned me as like, oh, you're the girl who can hit the high notes, and suddenly I didn't want to do that anymore because it made me uncomfortable in my body and with my voice. It got really weird, and I didn't feel like I could express myself fully through theater anymore because like something felt off.
Yeah.
It was just like a whole
Yeah, but
like it was a weird thing.
Yeah,
anyway.
But for my second experience like that, I did a solo song for a contest. ISMA is like I can't remember what the full title of it is or whatever. But the song I chose was a swing song, and it was called I Can't Be Talking of Love by an artist named John Duke. And it was about this person talking about how they love someone very, very deeply, but that they can't talk about it. And just like, it was a swing song, and some parts of it were very upbeat. There's this like bit in the middle that was like, I don't know, but it's just in my personal interpretation of it, I didn't interpret it as a happy song. For me, it was very bitter, like someone saying, I love this person so deeply. Like I think about this person in my sleep, but I just can't talk about it. I'm starting to cry. So sorry if that's coming through. But like, I have yet to have like my interest in someone reciprocated. So like there have been multiple times in my experience where I've like felt very strongly for a girl, but whether it was because they didn't like me back or whether it was because they weren't interested in women like that, there were a lot of times where I felt like I really loved someone but couldn't talk about it with them or express it. And see, like this kind of shit, man. But so it was very bittersweet for me. And I expressed that with that song. I tried to very much emphasize I'm in love and that's beautiful, but there's also this pain of I can't be open about it. Like I wish I could. And I remember getting so fucking mad. Sorry if I raised my voice for a second, because you have the two different sections of contest. The original one, which is like district, and then the larger one, which is state. I went to state and I got gold, which was great. But one of the people docked me down a point because you should be happier because it's a swing song. And it was just like,
girl,
shut up. You can't look at that song and tell me that it's happy.
Girl.
But yeah, my experience with art has mainly just been I draw women a lot and I draw women kissing and stuff like that. And with songs, I feel like that's probably one of the places I found it impacted the most, especially with romance. Just, man, yeah. So on the topic of things that we're like passionate about, since art is one of them, what other passions do all of us have, and what do you guys hope to accomplish with those passions?
Honestly, cooking. I like cooking.
Fuck
I
yeah.
like making
Hell
food.
yeah.
I'm fat. I like food.
Food is great, and it's something.
It is so good.
Food, like I I probably do not have like a passion in cooking in the same way that you do. I know that you've expressed that you wouldn't mind going after that in like a career, which is great. But like cooking is beautiful, and not everybody can find some kind of part of cooking, like making food for other people, having food made for you, sharing food with other people, eating food yourself, and knowing that there was like love and a history behind every single like ingredient and like dish and every like food is great. Oh, okay, sorry.
It's one of those universal languages that is just like that isn't complicated. That doesn't have to be really like. I remember growing up, everyone I knew was like, "Oh, math is the universal language," and I was like, "Okay, what about music? What about food? What about like there are things that we all have to experience as people, and math does not have to be one of them because it's boring and stupid."
Yeah, but so like
no offense to math enjoyers.
No, yeah, I love Jordan. It's just sorry, I didn't mean to like sort of take over your like answer. But
you pretty much covered every point I wanted to.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm just,
Rose, it's fine.
I love to hear that you have a passion in that because it's for me, food is something really special, and it's lovely when people can find like happiness in it. I don't know, man. Gets me sentimental.
The saying I always go to with food: a full stomach is a full heart.
Fuck yeah, bro!
If you feed somebody, they're gonna stay with you forever.
It's like the sister saying to the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. Is like,
yeah,
for real. You make me good food, and I will probably like never leave your house again. I'm like a dog in that way.
I love dogs. I also like a dog. I like car rides. Anyway, this is unrelated.
I have become really passionate about. I think mostly through outreach, I've gotten really passionate about kind of advocating for kids, right? Like, it's a whole like I'm watching these kids come in to outreach, and some of them like have a bunch of siblings and don't get listened to at home and can't be out at school or at home or wherever. And I watch these kids come in and they light up and they are invested in something that we're doing. And I'm like, God, like this is if I had started showing up to stuff like this when I was younger, I think I would have been way better off. And these kids like are brilliant and they're intelligent and they are passionate about what they're doing. And like knowing that there are grown ass adults who are trying to take that away from them. Like being angry is a thing that's kind of new for me. Like I didn't really experience anger pre-T. And now I'm angry about stuff all the time. It's very freeing to be able to like be angry and not feel weird about it. Like I used to feel guilty for being angry all the time. And you know, Laura Janney, our the person who runs outreach as an organization, has kind of put me in this like mentorship program for like educating adults on queer youth and how to like take care of their queer kids. I went to a presentation at the Boys and Girls Club just like a week ago, where we were like educating their staff on how to work with gender nonconforming youth. And like the response, like I like most of the stuff I've gotten angry about since I started on T has been kind of inconsequential. I have learned very quickly that there's nothing I get angrier about than people trying to take kids' rights away. Like that. And that's something that is worth getting angry about. And it's something that I feel okay being angry about because it's not for frivolous reasons. And as much as I hate the whole like, oh, my whole life I've been told like, oh, you're such a natural leader. I fucking hate that shit. It's annoying. But like, this is a moment where I feel like that is something that I can use to fight for kids who don't have a voice. And I can use that to make their lives better in the way that I wish mine could have been made better when I was their age. Like fighting all of this legislative stuff, fighting these adults who think they know what's what. Like it's something that I have an unparalleled amount of like anger and like passion for, which I don't think I would have unlocked without this silly little club we have. And so I'm really grateful for that.
I feel like I feel passionate about like writing and stuff, of course, and like creating theater and like obviously being like a voice for trans women in those spaces. But recently I've also been sort of interested in like urban planning and like city planning and like studying cities. And like I'm kind of into the idea of like being a trans woman in that space and like kind of being a part of building cities and like having like putting in more of a trans perspective, I guess, because we live in such like a cisgendered, cis-centered world. And I feel like putting myself in there as a trans person and like being a part of making those big decisions is like something that I'm really passionate about now, like ever since like becoming friends with someone who actually like does that for work. So that's like definitely been like a new sort of passion for me, I guess.
That's really cool.
But as far as things I want to accomplish, I definitely want to work on creating theater more. And I really want to produce a production of The Wolves soon, especially because of like recent legislation. I think like the depiction of a trans teenage girl like on a soccer team like in the Midwest and it not really being a big deal, like I feel like that would be really powerful, especially since we live in Indiana and all of the stuff that is happening. I feel like that would be a very powerful statement. And so like that's definitely something I want to accomplish here soon.
For me, hearing you talk about urban planning makes me think about I'm a law and public policy student currently. So this is like sort of going to be a little bit of a tangent, but I'm also going to try to rein it in. Like growing up, I've always been very interested in like topics of social justice and the kind of experiences that minorities have to deal with and things along those lines. It took me a long time to really acknowledge that as something I was like very deeply passionate about though, which is like surprising to me, honestly. But so it's like, as a law and public policy student, I can sort of relate to that in a way in like urban development, kind of. Like when I very much think very often about communities and about like when I think of other people, my thing is like I want other people to be happy, safe, and healthy. And there's a lot of things in the world that get in the way of that being an achievable goal. And it's like I want to break those down. I want to make the world better and make life easier for as many people as possible, especially people who are struggling. So like a lot of times I'll look at places that are dealing with issues of poverty and underdevelopment, and I'll think, what's the barriers here? What's keeping these people in this like area from being able to thrive? And part of that sort of comes from growing up in Muncie, because the south side of town is very different from the north side of town. The way that Ball State has played a very large role in keeping up the development in Muncie, but most of the development has been on the north side of town. So I see a lot of places on the south side of town struggling in regards to business. Walmart also contributed to that. Fuck Walmart. I hate them. I hate them. But it's like local business struggles there. One of the reasons it struggles is because Walmart, which I just like, I have issues with just it's hard to word all of this because there's just so many different factors at play, but like why seeing people not having adequate access to like grocery stores bothers me. Food deserts, the existence of those and the perpetuation of those bothers me. The idea of people not being able to live in houses that are safe and well maintained, or that roads aren't able to be well taken care of. Like when I see all of those glaring issues within communities, whether it be smaller communities or larger, it stresses me out. It makes me upset. Why should people have to suffer when there are solutions we could find? Whatever. You get what I mean. So I'm very passionate about those, and I hope to like continue pursuing that kind of line of how can I make things better through law and public policy, which I think is one of my biggest passions. Outside of like general, like I like watching some shows and things.
I think it's time for the moment we have in every episode where we all say "fuck capitalism." Fuck capitalism.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Fuck capitalism.
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing that I think I've always been kind of more of a chaotic good kind of individual, where I'm like, if the law isn't working, fuck the law. It doesn't matter anymore. Do what you got to do. I have a lot of respect for people who are like, work within the law, change the law. I don't have the patience for that kind of thing, but I think it's very cool that like, that's something that you're very passionate about. Like I'm more likely to, go ahead.
Sorry. It's just like, for me, law is interesting, but there's also just like, I feel I'm not 100% sure about what career I want to pursue yet, but I feel like I probably want to do something more like within the government, maybe something more local, because I want to see more active change in the community, and laws can help with that. But like in regards to development, law does play a part in it, but a lot of action is purely determined based off of what local governments are doing. Like my mother works at a local library, and I know that through the library, she's been able to help in a lot of programs that help support people in our community who aren't well off. So, but yeah, it's very interesting and it's very engaging, which is really cool. So then I keep saying on a different note to transition to new questions. So sorry that I've been using that phrase so many times, but also on a different note. So for the next question, what kind of life skills have you acquired from being involved with outreach? Very different question, I know, but it's interesting, so whatever.
Actually, like on the note that we were just working on, like kind of working on that, I've learned to kind of like I figured out how to compromise, because I kind of have a very radical ideology, and I know that about myself. And we have some people at outreach who are very like, no, you have to work within the system until you can't anymore. That is a thing that has frustrated me my whole life, and I don't get along with those people very well. I've learned over the last like 9 months that sometimes we just have to agree to disagree. And as much as I hate that, as someone who has been who's been argumentative his whole life, like I'm a debater until the other person concedes that I'm right. And we have a lot of people who have less radical ideologies who are just as stubborn as I am. I've had to learn to back down sometimes, and I'm not very good at that. And that has been really helpful, to learn to compromise with other people and understand their views without being fully supportive of them. I also personally have learned that working with middle schoolers is easier than I thought it was, but still not easy. Because we've got a lot of them, and I go to like in-person meetings a lot. And Laura has kind of dubbed me like a youth leader, which I hate, but I love Laura, so I'll do whatever she asks me to do because I'm a pushover. And so like I have learned a lot of like, I guess Ryan's telling me to say leadership skills. I guess leadership skills. I guess I'm kind of a leader. Don't look at me like now my mom's making faces at me. God damn it. I don't like to think of myself as a leader, because the way that I think of leaders is like dictators, like people who are pushy and rude. And I don't like to think that I'm pushy and rude, even though I am both of those things. I know that I'm both of those things, but like I don't like to call myself a leader. It feels very like egotistical and arrogant, but it's a thing that I've learned how to do without being a dick. Is I figured out how to like convince people to do stuff without yelling at them, which is a thing I did in high school a lot. Spoiler alert, people didn't like me very much in high school, but that's been like very eye-opening to like figure out how to be civil and also get people to do what you want them to do.
Yeah, I know how you feel, because some people, not going to mention names, Ryan, says I'm also a leader, and that I don't agree with it, because I guess I grew some leadership skills. I don't like being called a leader because I feel like you need to have guts and trust your gut instinct. I'm
Absolutely.
contradicting everything I do.
Yeah. Oh my God.
But,
like it feels like you have to be sure of yourself to be a leader. And I'm like, I have so much anxiety. I have never made a choice and liked it in my life.
Same.
I immediately, I regret everything I do all the time. But I guess, yeah, I don't know. It's like a whole thing of like calling yourself a leader does feel very like, oh, I'm a big guy. It feels really shitty.
But honestly, one of my favorite skills I've learned is listening. Because I like listening to other people's stories now. Because before I would be like, oh, cool. But now I'm like, I'm literally invested in what people are hearing. And now I'm like, but why did this happen? Why did that happen? And all that. And I just love talking with people. And honestly, I don't think I would get that if I wasn't at Outreach.
Hearing you guys talk about leadership skills has been really interesting for me. I don't know if I necessarily learned these skills from Outreach, though I feel like they definitely played a part in me learning to better. Like, okay, so as a kid, most of my home situation was really complicated. So like my mother is like a really wonderful lady, but she didn't have a whole lot of time like to dedicate to me and my needs, which was like fair. And it got better as I got older. But so as a little kid, I learned that what I needed and what I thought didn't matter because it can't, like you can't be the priority right now. So when I was younger, I learned not to really like fight for like what I believe in or what I want to say. So like as I got older and started to become better about it, I had to like build up my voice and become more confident in sharing like what I believe in and what I think. So it's like that was a process I went through. Like I improved a lot on it in high school, but like I had a lot of opportunities in Outreach to sort of take on a leadership role, which sometimes was like a little bit stressful. Like I'm like, oh God, am I saying things right or whatever? But there were some times where I was able to find like a lot of comfort in that role because it's like being a leader to me, though there are a lot of examples I've seen in the world of leaders being very, like we have to do it my way or the highway, that kind of thing. Leadership to me is you have to be able to guide a group, but you also have to, like, yes, you do take on a like sort of bigger role, but it's very much about making sure everyone's voices are heard and actively working together as a group. So like I don't really see it as much as like leading other people. I see it more as helping to make a group collaborate, and to do so in a way that's fair. But like, I've had opportunities to experience that and to also like sometimes I want to say that I've learned that sometimes it's okay to take a step back and let other people do the leading. But so like, I feel like it's probably been more of less learning to take a step back and more learning to take a step forward. Just, sometimes I feel like when I get loud, I get too loud, but I think that's mainly just an anxiety thing. And I'm very thankful that I've managed to like gain more of a voice. And also, I guess other skills. I've learned some social skills. Like one thing that I think is very useful is that I learned that starting to get to know people is really hard for me. That's something I learned about myself. But it's like if you keep putting yourself in situations where you get to learn more about someone, you can really find a connection that you might not have been expecting. Like it took me, like I said earlier in the episode, months to get used to Outreach and the people there. But it's like it was worth it.
You started pre-pandemic when there were like a fuck ton of people, right?
No, yeah. It was a lot to get used to.
Yeah, I could not imagine showing up to meetings with like 30 plus people like that.
Yeah.
Terrifies me. We've got like 15 right now, and it's still kind of a lot, even though most of them are in middle school. Like it's a lot. And it can be really stressful.
So then, Hunter, what kind of skills have you learned?
That's a good question. I feel like, at least with doing this podcast, it's helped me with like public speaking, because like I'm used to being like an actor and like hiding behind a character, and like I'm comfortable with that. But I've always been uncomfortable with speaking publicly, like as myself. So doing this podcast at least has made me more comfortable with just like presenting myself as a person and not hiding behind like a character or someone else's script, and just like presenting that, and that being good enough for people. And I feel like that's definitely helped with how I've been able to see myself as well. Just because before that, like I really liked acting because I could just be other people and I didn't have to like actually work on myself because people would praise me for pretending to be other people that they thought of as like funny or impressive. And like,
Hunter, you're hitting a little too close to home right now. If you could chill out a little.
But I also feel like it's also taught me just how to be more secure and asking for people to like be like asking for people to be more affirming to what I need as a trans person specifically. Because which sounds very small, but I like at the very beginning, like I feel like I was uncomfortable with telling people how I wanted to be referred to and like what name I wanted them to use and like how I wanted to be affirmed. And I feel like since being in outreach, I've become a lot more comfortable with saying like I am a trans woman and I only use these pronouns and I only want to be referred to in this way. And like if you don't refer to me in this way, like I'm not going to tolerate that. It took me a while to actually like get there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God, yeah, that was such it's a hard thing to do, and it's easier, I think, with a bunch of other people who are sharing the queer experience, and I think it's great to get that practice in that space instead of trying to do it with people who maybe don't get what you're talking about.
Sort of like hearing everyone talk about their experiences at outreach. I think it's just, it goes to show just how outreach's main goal, in one that it succeeds in, is being able to make a space that's positive and affirming and gives you as a young LGBT person, or just as a person in general, like room to like be more comfortable with who you are. And it gives you a space to speak up and learn how to just be what you are and accept yourself.
Community building is like for real crazy how much it can impact a person, having a community that is there for you and that supports you.
It's like, it's sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
No, you're
good. Just, it's really cool to have a space that both pushes, you know, that you should accept yourself, but also allows you to have room to grow through your experiences, both individually and with the other people there. Like, that's just really, really cool. But so building on outreach, what's everybody's fondest memory being a member at outreach?
Okay, this I have like, since I've been there the longest, I have a bunch of them. There are 3 that come to mind instantly.
Go for it.
When I got to perform with a person who I see like a brother. When I performed at prom with Luke. Honestly,
cool.
one of my favorite nights. Number 2, seeing a gay wedding and crying with Rose.
Shut up! Stop stealing my thunder!
Okay, and my last one, robotics with an incredibly wonderful instructor. Did she have any idea what she was doing? Hell no. Did we kill it? Hell yeah.
Okay,
so yeah.
You stole my thunder. So my fondest memory that I can think of, I had a lot of fond memories too. Outreach is great. I've loved being a part of it. I'm loving that I'm still in touch with it, even though I'm in Bloomington most of the time. But my fondest memory is being able to go to a lesbian wedding. 2 of our members, who are like older volunteers, were getting married. And they decided that they wanted to do it in the outreach space. And one, oh my God, I got to go to a lesbian wedding. That's so fucking cool and awesome. And like Jordan said, I cried a lot. But another way that it was really awesome, outside of just being able to see them get married and to be able to see an older lesbian couple, like just in love and just, oh my God, it was great. It was so great. But like we had an activity before the wedding where we talked about like our expectations about getting married as people who are LGBT and how our experiences were different. And just being able to hear everyone's experiences was really cool. But like one of my biggest fantasies is, you know, I really want to get married when I get older. I'm very much a hopeless romantic. So like,
no,
I'm gonna I might cry again. But like, being able to just not only be in a place where I get to see that experience and know that I can have that one day too, but then to be able to share like how I want to get married to a woman and how wonderful and amazing it's going to be, like, and to have an entire room of people understand what I mean. Like, bro, it was great. I loved it. The entire day was wonderful, and it was great being able to like be with everybody and to just celebrate like love. Man, it was so fucking cool, bro. I loved it. I'm crying a lot less than I did that day, so that's really cool. But like,
Oh, you were bawling that day.
I lost it numerous times. But it was just like I got to spend time with my friends and go to a lesbian wedding and cry over my gay fantasies. Like, yep, that's it. That was great. But oh my god, wait a minute. Okay, this is another thing. We Outreach had a Halloween dance, and I went with a couple of my friends, and Jordan performed at that Halloween dance, and their performance really resonated with me a lot, just because you could tell that they were really, really in it, and that what they were expressing in the song was something that they genuinely felt. And I just felt really compelled to go up to them after the dance was over and just sort of like cry over them and say like, you're so amazing and wonderful and I care about you so much. And like I gave them hugs and stuff. We both cried and it was really awesome. As someone who like struggled to make friends sometimes growing up, as in a lot of the times, oh my god, being able to meet Jordan through an outreach space and make such a like important friendship, that like, sorry Jordan, sorry for like doing this to you right now, but like literally it's I love outreach. I love you and all the other people I've been able to connect with there. It's so fucking cool, man.
I love you too.
I guess I can go next. I am not a
sorry.
No, I'm not a crier, but you're gonna fucking I hate you so much in the best way. I haven't been doing this for very long. I'll be real, like, but I'm gonna be sappy too. Don't worry about it. Okay. Some of my fondest memories are also the ones that have made me the most like uncomfortable. Just like pushing myself outside of my comfort zone. Probably the fondest memory I have is getting brunch with you guys at Cafe at the Crossing, and
that was always so fucking fun.
And getting to see everybody and gather in person and like talk about stuff with everybody, just without like an agenda or without like there being a recording, which obviously like we do that kind of every week after we record. But it was just really nice to just kind of be in a physical space with everybody, and it was something that like every conversation that we had was like legitimately engaging, and there was no one who was pretending to be engaged. And that's a thing that like it was really hard to find for me growing up, was like a group of people who were legitimately interested in the things I had to say, who were saying things that were legitimately interesting to me. And so to like have that many people in a physical space together that we're all like celebrating us as a group was like really huge. I've got a second one that is like very close behind because it pushed me way out of my comfort zone and like made me really anxious in the moment, but I'm really grateful for it. Was about a week ago, we did a youth group where my mom went out of her way to kind of surprise me with like a cake for my name change thing. And I've always had a lot of really bad anxiety when I feel like everybody in the room is looking at me, or when I feel like I'm being self-centered about a thing. But like being able to be with all of these kids who don't see things like that celebrated all the time, who don't see those things like put in a positive light, and being able to provide them with free cake was really nice. And like, as much as I hate being the center of attention more than anything in the world, it's my least favorite thing. It was really cool to like have a community be there that was legitimately like, this is going to sound really sad, but like it has been kind of rare for me in the past to have a group that is legitimately proud of my accomplishments, no matter how little I think they are. And like, that was a moment like that for me, where like, it was a group of people who like saw a thing that I did that to me wasn't super significant, but it was for them. And like that kind of rocked my shit a little bit. And I was kind of an asshole on the day because I was really anxious about it. And I kind of get mean when I'm anxious and I feel really bad about it, but it was huge and I'm really grateful for it. And I'm really grateful for this experience. Oh my God. I'm going to stop now. Whoa, fuck.
No, it's perfectly fine. I can definitely relate to that. Like I mentioned earlier, I also didn't have a whole lot of like positive, like people focusing on me at all, like was very rare. And when they did, like me being celebrated, like what the fuck? So having a space where I was able to have that more often than not was like really fucking weird. And it took a lot to get used to. But it's so awesome to have a community like that.
God, that whole day felt like the whole day felt like that moment in the restaurant when your friend tells the waiters that it's your birthday. And then
oh my God, I hate that.
And sings their variation of how, like the whole day felt like that. Like I was like, please God, stop looking at me. But at least there's cake, you know?
But what flavor?
We got a cake from Charmed that was a rainbow tiered cake.
Understandable.
Yeah. I think it was all the same. I think it was all vanilla, but it looked really pretty.
It was gay.
It was a gay cake. And it on the top, they wrote, "It's a boy" on it, like a gender reveal. And it was just, and like, God, it felt so weird to have people all like legitimately celebrating me without it being, this is also going to sound really sad, without it being like a joke or some kind of like prank or whatever, where it's like everybody's kind of secretly making fun of you. I'm fine. I'm in therapy. Don't worry about it. But it was kind of huge. And like being able to be in a big group that is legitimately supportive of me is like a big deal. And so every time that that's happened, I've kind of freaked out a little. Okay, I've talked for enough time. I'm going to shut up now.
No, we're glad to hear you speak. That was really, yeah. Hunter, what has your fondest memory been so far? I know you haven't been here as long, but
yeah, I feel like because I haven't been here as long, mine aren't as cool. But like the brunch was definitely like a highlight, I would say. But also, I have a memory like with meeting Noelle at Outreach and like her taking me home and us talking for like, we talked for like 4 or 5 hours and we were just like sitting in front of my house. And that was very nice because that's the first time that I ever felt like fully understood by a person, like in a way that no one else ever did. Like, so that, I feel like that was definitely a highlight. And like after that conversation, I definitely felt even more secure in my identity, like as a trans woman. And I felt like way more affirmed. So I'm really glad that I like met her and like am really appreciative of our friendship because I feel so secure in like my identity as a trans woman for having that conversation. And I don't know, there's a lot of things about it that was really eye-opening for me, and I really just appreciate her and the place she has in my life and stuff.
I know. Sorry, if you have more to say, finish. I don't want to.
No, what were you gonna say?
I just wanted to say, going into that, I know that you mentioned that you said that you'd think it was like small or like not as monumental compared to the rest of us. But I mean, hearing your experience, that is big.
That is
being able to have yourself affirmed in that way and to have that experience. I don't know. It's just like, I get really sentimental about other people being able to like be happy and stuff. So like, I'm really happy you were able to have the experience, and that's really fucking cool.
Rose, you're not allowed to make me cry today. You can't do it.
I can't. I just
We're not allowed to cry on the
other
podcast.
people. Like
new rule: no crying on the podcast.
I can't. That's illegal. I can't do it. I break the law all the time.
Holy shit!
But like, that's really cool.
I want to say I've also, Hunter, been really grateful for every talk that we've gotten to have at Outreach. Like, we weren't super close doing theater stuff. Like, you were always kind of much older than I was. And I was kind of an asshole doing theater for a long time. And so every time that we get to like kind of sit and talk and I get to hear about your life is always really wonderful. And even though sometimes I question your choices, you don't fault me. Like, I'm just kind of like that. I'm like a safe side kind of guy. And like the choices that you make terrify me because you're so brave about everything that you do, and like getting to hear that and knowing that like hearing about your positive experiences, like being out, is always really wonderful. And I'm just so incredibly proud of you.
Thank you.
You're probably one of the bravest people I've ever met. So that's like a huge thing, that like getting to see you do that and be comfortable and be brave is really huge for me.
I love this group so much.
I love you guys, or whatever. God.
Is it okay if I mention one more thing?
Yeah.
Outreach has given me the opportunity to talk with a person who has incredibly impacted my life more than they probably even know. When I first started, I was an incredibly scared individual who frankly had no honestly, I felt like I had no real purpose in this world. And actually, these two individuals helped me find my right path. So honestly, I want to thank Venus, who was a guest on a previous episode, my wonderful drag mom, and one of the people who helped put this together, Ryan.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, this podcast is probably the closest knit group of people I've ever interacted with. And I like could not imagine a person who is more equipped to be in charge of it than Ryan is. Like,
yeah.
Literally, like,
guys, how fun would it be if we made Ryan cry on the Zoom call right now? How fun!
It would be literally the best thing ever. But like, okay, so this is funny for me because, like, okay, one, you're completely right, and I completely agree. But like, to have really long-winded conversation about like the state of the world and shit like that, and like Ryan is like perfect to talk to about that kind of stuff, and it's just like, yeah, great person, wonderful.
Yeah.
Like, it was funny because like when he first came to Outreach, like, you know, it was just like, hey, I remember the first time that I talked to him, I wanted to ask, like, I assumed that he was gay because, like,
yeah,
you know,
because it's Outreach. There's got to be something.
So I went up to him and I decided that I wanted to ask him, like, what has your experience been in the LGBT community as a Black man? Because I feel like a lot of times people of colors, like, their experiences in the LGBT community can be very, very different because their race plays a way in the way that they experience their identity and in the way that people treat them for their identity, whether it be their race or their like sexual or gender identity. And, you know, his response was, oh yeah, actually, I'm not, like, I'm straight. But
I'm not one of you. You know how mean Ryan is?
This
but we got to know each other better, and like, yeah, I'm glad that he's a part of Outreach. I'm glad that he's played a role in this because it's great to talk to him, and I'm, you know, yeah, you're great, dude.
The thing is, genuinely about Ryan, I see him like a father figure.
Absolutely.
Because
how could you not? First of all,
Ryan, you're diagnosed as dad now. How do you feel?
But like Ryan has always been there for me whenever I needed him. He's come to every show I told him about. He's just always been a shoulder who I can lean on, and genuinely,
it's just a lot of crying today, huh?
I just said we're not allowed to cry on the podcast anymore.
I've been here for longer. We can cry.
Right,
sorry for bringing that out on you.
Seniority, I guess.
But he showed me that it is okay for a person who looks male or male presenting to be emotional.
Absolutely.
Because I haven't had a lot of adult figures like that in my life, and genuinely, thank you.
For real, I have never met someone more supportive of his kids than Ryan is, and we're not even his. Like, for sure, like, I know that if I need something at a moment's notice at 3:00 in the morning while my mom is snoring in the other room, Ryan's probably awake and can probably help.
Yeah.
For sure there. And I have, like, some of my favorite conversations I've ever had have been like deep philosophical talks with Ryan at ungodly hours of the night.
Yeah.
Truly just hours after the podcast recording has ended, we're still chatting away. And truly, like, this wouldn't be possible without him. Yeah. And I don't think that he realizes how much of an influence he has in our lives. And truly, like, it's so important to me that you know how important you are.
Yeah.
Well, I love that was a bit you wanted to add. I think it's a wonderful bit to keep. I love it. That's great. But so then that was the end of our questions for this episode. So hopefully you got to know us a little bit better, you know?
Before we go, we would like to take this time to thank our loyal listeners for sticking through us during the first year of podcasting. It means so much to all of us. If you want to listen to any of the episodes we discussed here, we're available on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music /Audible, Deezer, and Apple Podcasts. If you want to interact with us on social media, just look up our name on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If you need someone to talk to, look up the Trevor Project or Muncie Outreach. The suicide hotline is 800-273-8255. We all here care about you, so please take care of yourself. Happy New Year to everyone, and we'll see you in the next episode.